It's a brother
and a sister.
It's a brother and a sister.
Brother and a sister. Yo, brother. Yo, sister.
Yo, brother. It is a serious day here on our program. A brother and a sister dealing with topics such as finances, saving, and making sure that we can thrive in this nation called South Africa, where perhaps at this point we know what the budget speech is, perhaps we don't. It's all a mystery. My name is Babi Muloy.
Yes, indeed. And my name is Khabani Muloy. Today, we talk about it all.
Yes.
Finances.
Yes.
VAT.
VAT.
Charts.
This and that.
Investments. Other things that have to do with money.
Girlfriend allowance.
Oof. Sorry. But everything that has to do with money, we talk about it today.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm feeling very businessy, and yourself?
I'm feeling very businessy as well. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Today we are going to be talking about business.
Charts.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line.
Acquisition.
And also acquisition.
That's the one.
Sorry.
Auditing.
And auditors.
Yes, that too.
Who come to audit.
Yes, at all times.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I've begun to realize.
Yes, tell me more.
I've begun to realize in the conversation of death, it's inevitable. Right? I really had to do that. In the conversation of death, this has been
inevitable.
This is just a personal conversation that's been on my head. Posthumous albums.
Yes.
Yes. There's been a lot of posthumous albums throughout
time. It's true.
There's like a handful of posthumous albums, maybe like 2 that I actually like. Because as soon as a posthumous album is when an artist obviously passes away.
Yes.
And they still release the album after.
So perhaps they've made an anthology of music and they put it together and they release the album posthumously.
But the further away the album has been released, the more you can hear the artist had nothing to do with the album.
Got it.
Like Michael Jackson's, I think it's Escape.
Yeah.
He passed away in 2009.
Yeah.
Came out in 2015.
You're joking.
I think, yeah. And
even the artwork doesn't look like something Michael would approve of.
Yeah, it's not loud enough. But
or interesting.
Yeah.
It looks like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael never was like anyone else. Yeah. I knew him personally.
Yeah, that's the homeboy.
Yeah.
I just call it MJ.
Yes, exactly. Or Big Mike.
Yeah.
Or Little Mike, depending on what was going on.
Call him Walker. Or Mooney.
Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
Munzo.
Munzela.
Yes.
Munasia.
Munisha.
Then there's, Tupac Machiavelli, where he kind of released shortly after he passed away. So you can hear that he did have a lot of input in the album before he passed away.
Didn't we go a bit crazy analyzing that for clues about how he passed away? I remember that happening.
Oh, like he predicted his death.
And he said who's going to pull the trigger, perhaps things. I don't remember exactly, but there was a lot of like conspiracy theory about that time.
Yes. One of my personal favorite posthumous albums is Mac Miller's Circles.
Mac Miller.
Yes. The best white boy from Pittsburgh of all time.
Mac Miller and I share the same moon sign. We do. I was reading about moon signs and your sun sign. So your actual star sign, Libra, Capricorn, whatever.
What is your moon sign?
Mine's Cancerian.
Cancerian.
That's why I have a big heart of love. And Mac Miller is a Cancerian moon sign. You know who else is? Janis Joplin. Do you know who else is?
27 Club.
Yep.
Damn.
Do you know who else is?
Jean-Michel.
Basquiat.
Yeah, I assume, because he's also 27 Club.
Yeah, listen, there are so many 27 Club members of Cancerian moon signs. Yeah. So if you're a Cancerian moon sign, please look after your mental health, look after your emotional health. And there are lots of apps that can tell you about it.
Wait, no, I was just guessing with Jean-Michel.
I don't think you're right, but we'll put it, it works for the story.
Okay.
Clickbait.
Who else is?
Actually, maybe that should be our headline. Jean-Michel Basquiat, Cancerian moon sign, 27 Club.
whatever we say at this point on this podcast is 100% true because we are wearing suits.
That's
That's how it works, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, everybody knows you can't lie in a suit.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw people being shouted at over the last few weeks for not wearing suits.
Sure.
Yeah.
A whole war was gonna go out.
Thank you.
Sorry, the reason why I'm bringing up Posthumous albums is because Ricky Rick is he's well also AKA's album as well, but Ricky Rick's album is about to release I think this Friday, and there's been a lot of like uproar and stir about why people that Ricky Rick wanted on the album before he passed away are not on the album, and there's people that are only starting to blow up now that Ricky Rick probably never even heard of that are on the album. And there's a lot of like creative decisions that you're like, he would not have made these decisions. And the idea of when you've passed away, like, why are things still happening? Why?
Because there's money attached.
Yes.
That's my number one answer.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't AKA in the process, he was just about to drop,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then the album dropped. So it was all
I think
under his own personal curatorship.
Yes.
Obviously, we work with your management and the label. But it's been years since Ricky left us, eh?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I interviewed his team when they had made an AI song of Ricky's, and it was to raise funds or awareness or something or the other. And we talked about the ethics of using somebody's voice in that way for AI.
That is so.
And if you go anywhere on the internet, you can hear flippin' Busta Rhymes doing a rap on a Taylor Swift song. Like you can hear any AI. And so the ethics around that are very, very important.
Yes.
What kind of contracts now as artists and creatives we've got to start thinking about. And then also being very specific about what do you want to happen to your TikTok when you pass? What must I do with it?
Delete it.
Delete it altogether.
Delete it all. And don't even deactivate the account. First delete each individual video and then
Is it?
that. Yeah, no. I need that thing.
Must we
gone.
make an announcement?
No.
I don't want an announcement either.
Actually, you know what? I'll make a draft. There'll be a death TikTok that
That's
I have
tragic.
saved.
Yo.
And I just want you to post that. And just
Okay.
leave that up for like 6 months so that everyone can come to the page and see like, hey, if you're watching this, I am dead. I don't know what else I'm gonna put on that TikTok, but it's over. And I'll be in a suit, of course.
Of course.
Yes. If you're watching this, I am dead. And I don't mind.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It's dark. People need to talk about these things.
You can continue scrolling, but I just wanted to let you guys know you can unfollow this page.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like 6 months, you can keep it up, and then after that, delete everything.
All right.
Just delete everything.
Is there a way you can download the videos? Because there's some videos that I'd like
Of me?
you guys to laugh and remember me and my hilariousness and how pretty I was throughout
If you
my
passed
life.
away, I'm not gonna go through your TikTok.
You're not. I'd go through your TikTok.
I'll be too sad.
I know, but eventually you kind of get over that.
Yeah, what is a sister?
Nah.
Okay. But see that, so the conversation is really interesting because then it's like, how do you plan for things after your death? Because there's
Yeah.
certain, like as an artist especially, you obviously want your family to keep eating off of your work.
Of
but
course.
then there's another thing of like, you don't want your work to be tainted and, you know, manipulated in ugly ways. The fact that Drake had Tupac and Snoop Dogg on an album, on a song recently,
Yeah.
and it was all AI. Things
Yeah.
like that is just gross.
I just don't understand why you have to keep mentioning Drake on this podcast.
Because it's fun. Also, he's suffering right now, so you know, like, you know.
I love Kendrick Lamar. We're on Team Kendrick Lamar.
But yes, what would you want when you pass away in terms of your voice? You've been in the radio for so long. I assume
Inside the radio,
you-
just scratching my way out. No, I'm joking.
Maybe that-
I would like for my family to be together and however many kids I have by that point and grandkids and whatever, and to all be looked after.
Mhm.
And that's it. And perhaps there can be a moment for anybody who's interacted with my brand, who's enjoyed the work that I've done, you know, some sort of maybe online space for that.
Mhm.
And then I'm out.
You're out.
I'm out. Like, I'm out. I don't want, listen, there are going to be people who are going to knock at your door and say, your sister would have wanted this. You must hire bodyguards. I'll put that in my will. Bodyguards. And I'll name the specific people who must not come. Pretty much. And then you must have your celebration, nice food, good things. That's it.
Okay. Will you sponsor the after tears?
Of course. But it's just for you and the family.
Oh.
If any of your friends arrive, I'm
Yeah.
not scared of being a ghost.
That's the point of after tears. Like, what am I gonna do?
What?
Me and Granny.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you think I'm going to pass before our 90-year-old
Granny's
granny?
never gonna die.
That's true. You're actually right.
I've made that
You're
conclusion.
right.
in my
Granny will
head.
bury us all. So then, yes. Make sure that she can bring all her friends and dance.
That's what I'm saying.
It's only fair.
Yeah, I know. But
So, back to the suits
back to the suits.
and the reasons why we're wearing the suits.
Mhm.
Because we thought today, let's talk about money. Let's talk
Yes.
about finances. Let's talk about our money mindset.
Mhm.
What does mommy like to talk about?
Avalanches
Avalanches
of
of abundance.
Yes. Money is circulating in my life in avalanches of
Of abundance.
Yeah.
This is how we grew up.
Yes. Manifestation. You were learning that at the age of,
Zero.
yeah, before I could even talk. This
That's
is
why I got my first job when I was 3.
Yes. I got my first job when I was yesterday. Yeah,
So our guest today is Jean Archary, and she talks about money messages, and a lot of it is about that mentality, mindset, how we feel about money, what we've told about money, and then also how to then start fixing some errors in your life if you've made any financial errors, and then what's I think is really going to be fun is you're literally just at the start of your life. You're 23 years old. I'm middle-aged. And so we have completely different needs financially at this point, right?
Yes.
And so it would be so exciting to hear some tips, some ways of, making sure that you do at least as close to the right thing as possible.
Yes.
And I can maximize where we are. So shall we bring Jean in?
Let's do that.
Yay!
We don't yay.
Sorry,
It's a
people in suits don't
business.
yay.
Money.
And over to you, Jean.
Well, I'm feeling very excited because, like you said earlier, I'm a young 23-year-old trying to figure out this financial world, and no better than to be talking to you, Jean. Thank you
Knows
so much.
everything about money.
But it's the way that you bring the message across, and that's why I thought it would be so important. Jean Archary, money messages, and you've also written children's material about how to teach children about money as well. And they always say, you can't teach what you don't know or what you haven't experienced. So I have a lot of faith in your advice for Chabani at 23, and then what we do now as parents in our 40s and how to invest and things of that nature. So maybe you want to start with telling us about your business.
Oh, cool. So Money Messages was formed out of my desire to empower others around money. And, it's kind of evolved from what it was initially, which was teaching technical skills about how to budget, how to invest, how to save. And it's kind of evolved over the years to include now how we think about money, how we feel about money, because all of that actually impacts how we behave about money.
Gotcha.
I've been on this journey of wanting to improve my own financial wellness. And it came out of a negative experience, a traumatic negative experience.
All the best things come out of a traumatic
100%. I think we only grow
if
through
we're
challenge.
pushed. Yeah, you're right.
So, I'm very grateful for those experiences because I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about how I attract money into my life, how I behave with money, how I feel about money, how I think about money. And so it was a necessary part of my evolution to getting here. And I think if I hadn't gone through that experience, if I hadn't gone through some of the challenges and the feelings that I was experiencing, the fears and the doubts and the self-limiting beliefs around money, I wouldn't be able to teach others about how to practically overcome those things and address those things in your life. Because it's not so much just earning money and now where do I save it? It's
Yeah.
why are people not saving? What's stopping them from changing their bad money behaviors or their bad money habits? And how do you instill those healthy money habits, going forward as young children, as parents, as, because we all are going to be making mistakes with money as we
Oh,
go
for
through
sure.
life,
For sure.
A lot of our parents didn't teach us in the right way because they were also limited in terms of the resources and the tools that they had available. So no fault of their own, but I think a lot of their self-limiting beliefs were passed on to us. And so, just being aware of that, creating awareness around it and giving people practical tools that they can use to overcome that is basically what I'm focusing on more now, as opposed to this is where you save.
Okay.
That's great. I don't know if you caught us both looking at each other about limiting beliefs.
Yeah. No.
Oof.
Because that is a
That is
very,
preached to us at home. Yeah.
that is a very hard thing to get over. Like,
Yeah.
how does one overcome their perception of money? Because sometimes it's also like you feel like you somewhat don't deserve it. Like you'll, even sometimes when I'm sending through an invoice and then it's just like the bit of anxiety that I have where I'm just like, I'm so worried that they're not gonna agree that this is how much I'm worth. So then now you're negotiating with yourself if you should lower the price, if you should keep the same thing. And that can really like destroy your whole self-belief system. By the time you get the money, you're just like, ah.
Yeah, 100% resonate
Sure.
with that because it goes back to, again, your self-worth issues and or your limited beliefs around your self-worth. And I've been working with a coach for a few years and various different coaches, reading several, books around personal development and self-growth just to get a better sense of why I feel this way about asking for money and why I feel this way about discounting my value when I do, ask for a certain price. And it's a daily struggle, I tell you. I mean, I still battle with those kind of things.
Okay.
Just trying to figure out what is the marketplace paying for your services and what can you demand as what you're offering in terms of value. And so I've done a lot of work around that, personal work around that, in terms of overcoming my limiting beliefs around what my value is. And again, it's a daily struggle.
Do you think you could share some of those like exercises that you do to like get over that?
So, again, I think unpacking and identifying what those beliefs are is a starting point. So it's going to require a lot of time to reflect, catch yourself saying certain things. First of all, what are those negative statements that you're saying? I don't believe I'm deserving of this, or I don't believe I'm worthy of this, and then start unpacking what that is. And I think one of the good things that you can actually do is to start reframing certain things that you're telling yourself.
Okay.
Instead of saying I don't deserve this, try and figure out why you're saying I don't deserve this. What are the reasons behind that? Because it always goes back to I'm not enough. I don't have the skills or the tools or the resources to be able to do this. It always goes back to your ability and look at what value is it that you're offering. And we're all unique. We all have, our own unique abilities and skills. And so start working around that and reframe. Affirmations is a great way of reframing and rewiring the brain.
Avalanches of abundance. Avalanches. And we joke about that, but I mean, yes, we were given a lot of that more recently than when we were younger. Which I mean, I think big ups to Mom for trying to change even her own mentality and thinking around money, and it gives us a nice opportunity then to also follow suit and to make sure that we can change our mindsets. I know that a lot of it is about esteem and self-esteem and why me and how um I deserve it rather than don't deserve it. And when you talk to other people or coach people, I mean, I can imagine it goes beyond money. You go deep into things that people experienced in childhood. There's a lot more than we see when it comes to our relationship with money.
Yeah, 100%. And the tagline for my business is shifting how we think,
Yeah.
how we feel, and how we behave with money. Because again, if I use that example of, if I teach you how to budget as an example, the chances of you sticking to that budget is very slim, because I haven't gone and helped you to understand why you need to budget. And why you need to budget would be very different to why Pubby needs to budget. And so unpacking that reason around why you need to budget is the first starting point. And then teaching you how to budget and sticking to those those actions will be a lot more easier, because now you have a strong enough burning desire as to why I need to budget.
Yeah.
So it always starts with the why. You touched on an important point there about our childhood experiences, and if and Pubby is obviously aware of my experience and why I do what I do. But I was born into an abundant home. And so we weren't short of anything. I would go for drama lessons, piano, dance lessons. And so my childhood was abundant.
Okay.
And almost overnight, we lost that abundance and went into scarcity mode. So life was very tough growing up from, the first 8 years of my life to almost, overnight transitioning to now not having anything and being dependent on other people or extended family members. And so that caused a lot of challenges for me, not so much in my childhood, but more so in my in adulthood. And that's where the self-limiting beliefs, the abandonment issues, the anxiety around depending on other people and trusting other people, and it impacted and altered my view on relationships, parenting, business, career, my self-worth, finance. And so a lot of those things I had to work through and overcome over the years. When I wanted to start Money Messages up again in 2020, that was the year of COVID, right?
Yes,
2020.
yes.
Yeah.
I had a plan, and I'd worked towards that plan for 2 years, because I wasn't going to just do this,
You
on
were
a
in
whim.
corporate.
Yeah, I was
the
in
time,
corporate,
yeah.
But I was also a single mom, so
Yeah.
single income household.
Right.
And COVID happened. I was supposed to leave in March. Ended up, listening to the noise around me. People were saying, you can't leave. You're a single mom. People are not going to want to pay for your services. And so I gave into that fear. And I gave into that noise. And I got scared. And all these fears came up to the surface again, thinking that I had worked through this. And I had to work on my overcoming those fears for about a year, going for a lot of self-development workshops, working with a coach, reading, just, improving my knowledge, because those fears are always going to remain. It's just, how do you work through them? How do you overcome them and embrace them? And when I did, that's when I discovered a lot of the practical tools that I now use in my coaching program.
Got it.
So it's the affirmations, it's the meditating, it's visualizing, it's reading self-development books, it's finding new ways of doing things. All of that has actually helped, and I've got to practice that on a daily basis. It doesn't mean I've overcome it. You'll find that new problems surface, and now you've got to figure out, how do I get over this hurdle?
And also, more money, more problems. So if you earn more, there's more to think about, right? And I can imagine that. Okay, so you're absolutely right. Where Khabane is now versus where perhaps you and I are now is very, very different. I found that at Khabane's age, because of our aunt over here, who is like, she is a money maven. I don't know how she does it with jobs that women in the 1960s and 70s were offered in South Africa as black women. But she was able to build businesses and pay off bonds. And she's incredible. So she's my icon when it comes to all things money. So 23, I'm budgeting, I'm learning things, I'm finding out how to make sure that I don't retire poor, because everybody who's in our industry dies a pauper. And I was like, that'll never be me. So I'm doing that. Then something happens, and perhaps it's similar to the shift that happened in your life. That was the challenge and the trauma. And then I'm almost overcome by what the world's messages are, rather than the faith that I had in myself, that I can make this happen. I don't know if you experience that, if you see that in some of your clients, and then how do you kind of scrape yourself back?
Yeah. There's so much of information out there that when it comes to money, in a lot of households, it's a very taboo topic, first of all. And I think because we've made it so complex, the world of investing and how do you retire comfortably and, where do you invest? It's become so overwhelming, especially for the younger generation, that a lot of people just steer away from it. And it's actually very, very simple. If you get the basics right, it can be a very simple process to go through. And that's my intention, again, behind Money Messages, is how do we simplify this process,
Right.
especially for younger people? How do we tell them or give them information that they need? This is where you start, and this is what you need to do on a daily basis over a period of time. It doesn't need to be something that you achieve overnight. Financial wellness, for me, it's a journey. It's not something that you achieve and then you forget about it. It's like physical health. It's a journey. It doesn't mean you'll ever get there. It's not a destination
Yes.
that's just going to happen overnight. It's something that you have to work towards and constantly be working towards on a daily basis.
Okay. So it's actually quite similar what you have to do to start to maintain.
Yeah.
And if you have a drop off or challenge, it's quite similar. So the thinking and the affirming yourself and finding your space out of that darkness and your fears about money, it's a similar thing. That will be your how much do you bench for the rest of your life, right?
I think also when you were talking about investments and how younger people don't necessarily look at that, it's also because we're living in a time where everything sounds like a scam. The idea of it's too good to be true, and it probably is.
Probably is.
and then you hear the few people that are investing or that you see are very like loud about money. It's like forex traders and that, and you're just like, this doesn't look real. And it's like, where do you start? Because the conversation about passive income is everywhere, but the idea of like, where do you start? What kind of bank accounts do you have to do? And that's where it starts getting tricky when you get into the technical part about it all.
And slow and steady wins the race. I think a lot of people are looking for what's the quickest way to make money.
Yes.
Which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, as you said, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. I think also important to diversify. So you don't want to be putting all your eggs in one basket and creating multiple sources of income. I mean, we grew up in an environment where you only had one job, you only had one career. Now people are doing more than one thing. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a business owner. I'm always looking at different opportunities and initiatives to try and create money. And I've said that I've planted that seed in my daughter's own mind. For a very long time, she wanted to become an artist. And we know the world of art can be...
Who, us? You think we know?
Irregular uncertainty.
That's all of my
income.
brother's art.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
That was our mother's album cover for one of her albums.
Sure.
So we are arts family
Yeah.
through and through. And so, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
What a frightening path to choose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do you now, as someone who is in corporate or in the world of speaking about money,
Sure.
now try and educate your child around, I want to be an artist, because I'm all for, if this is your passion and your purpose,
Do it.
I will support you
Yeah.
in
That's so
whatever way I
awesome.
can.
Yeah.
So from the time she was 2 years old, all she's wanted to be was an artist. And you get a lot of parents trying to, but try and speak her out of it because it's a hard industry to crack into. But then, there was a conversation around, okay, how can we support you on this journey?
Yes.
And so she would go for extra art lessons, everything at home. There was like always an abundance of paint and drawing material, etc., just to encourage her and support her on this journey. And then the conversations as she got older was like, well, you can be an artist, but you can also be an art teacher. So if you want to have stability of income, because she wanted to teach other kids as well.
Okay.
It evolved to, okay, so you can be an art teacher and you can be an artist and you can also own an art gallery at some point in your life. So there's multiple sources of income that can still be generated from being an artist.
Yes.
So just planting those seeds and having those kind of conversations. at 16, there's no more talk of being an artist,
Okay.
which is very creative. But now it's either psychology or an
Okay.
accountant. So it's kind of evolved over the years.
Okay.
But I think what's beautiful about what you're talking about is we need to be a bit creative in the way that we look at our industries. And I think now more than ever, moms like you are equipped with that kind of knowledge to explain.
Yeah.
Well, you can have your own gallery. Well, you can do this and
Yeah.
the third and still be in the art world, but you don't necessarily always have to be in front of the camera or behind the mic or whatever it is. I think that's phenomenal advice.
So especially for the young people like you, I mean, and I think, start thinking about ways of how you can create those multiple sources
Yeah.
of income. Passive income would be ideal because you want to make money while you sleep.
Yeah.
So start thinking about how can you use your skills and your talents to create those multiple sources of income. Another tip, and I think a lot of people who come from a scarcity mindset,
Yes.
we are so used to playing the victim and to relying on other people to employ us or give us an income, that we're not looking at how can I tap into the resources that I currently have within me to be able to create those multiple sources of income. So whether it's looking at the problems in your community, the problems in your family, the things that your family members are struggling with, whether it's I can't get my kids to school on time or pick them up, how do you help support them on their journey and then still be remunerated for it?
I think that's where that self-worth conversation comes back in, because then it's like the people that you look up to, they can't sort out they have an issue, and if your self-worth isn't good, it's going to be that thing of, if they can't figure it out, how do I have
How would
that?
I? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a very difficult
I just have
conversation.
to say, we've never nodded this much. Like we are going, yes, Jean, you're really opening our minds.
Okay, I'm glad.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people need to have these conversations. And as you started saying, it's a bit taboo in families. Would you teach art?
Would I teach art?
Yeah, not necessarily to small kids, but would you teach art?
It would have to be a thing of the people would want to be interested in the art that I do.
Of course.
Or it would have to be conversations about artists that I've already been obsessed with. You get what I'm
Okay.
saying? So that's the only two
Oh, that's
ways.
very interesting. So maybe working in a gallery or maybe whatever it is and exposing yourself in that way.
Have you sold your art?
No, I
Don't
haven't.
get us started.
So
Okay.
the conversation about selling art always stresses me out, because then when you sell your first piece of art, then that price is pretty much your starting price.
Help us, Jean.
And
Okay.
so I've heard that when I was doing research about like selling arts in galleries and stuff, when let's say I sell a piece for 50,000 rand, but then at home I'm selling pieces, the same similar pieces for like 2K or whatever, that immediately devalues that person's investment. So it's like you have to be very careful with
How you price.
how you're pricing. Also, the landscape of where you're selling your art, because yes, you'll be selling your art to, one day you'll sell it to some foreigner that's like they're moneyed. But if you start selling those same artworks to like people in your neighborhood for 250 or whatever, that immediately devalues their investment, and they'll never want to buy your art again, because art is also an investment in that way.
It is, but I think we also start somewhere. I mean, if you look at what a price of an album, maybe an artist, a musician charged when they were a no-name brand or just getting to, people getting to know them, their price was a lot lower, and then it kind of escalated from there.
Keep going up. I think that's the limiting self-belief of just the idea of that building, where like, how do I get an artwork that I can imagine selling for 250 to 1,000 to 10,000 and up.
But
and
you've
up
got to
and up.
create the market and the need for it, and then the value of that will be then seen. I had a similar problem when I started my business. I started off with 0 clients, and I would do a lot of things for free. So, if I was given an opportunity to speak at an event, I never charged. A lot of free initiatives or events, I would grab the opportunity
Sure.
because I was still building my brand. Nobody knew Jean Archary. No one knew who Money Messages was. And so I was trying to add to my credibility and build my brand. So for the first 2 years, I did a lot of things for free. It took a lot of time and a lot of work on my self-worth and on the value that I was able to offer and demand a price for, to get to a point where, and that comes again with experience. It comes with the belief in your abilities and the
Yeah.
belief in the value that you're offering, to be able to say, well, now I'm charging a certain price. I'm sorry, if you can't afford my services, go find somebody else
Yeah.
that
Get
can.
out of here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd never
Absolutely.
find like a Michael Jackson, if he was still alive, coming and doing a music concert for free.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
No. But maybe Joe dragged those Jackson 5s around when they were very small and had to do that, right? To build. So would part of the message be just start?
Yeah, start. And business skills is something that you acquire over time. It's not something that a lot of us were not taught that, first of all. If you don't start and you don't learn, it's trial and error. You're going to make mistakes along the way. That's okay. These are lessons. How do you pick yourself up from that? How do you figure out new ways of doing things or different ways of doing things that's going to actually... So if you don't start, you're never going to know.
You're never gonna know. Okay.
And it's a fascinating thing now. Kids are starting even younger, right? So they're creating their own Fortnite skins or Roblox obbies so that they can sell them online.
You've got to educate me. Skins? What?
Oh, okay.
I have
Basically,
a daughter,
it's a
first of
video
all.
game, and they need to wear something. So you create an outfit for them. Essentially, that's a
Yeah.
skin, no?
Yeah.
And then an obby is, I think, the like obstacle course that the kids have to go through. So you can create that stuff and earn in those digital currencies, which then can be converted to real currencies, or you keep playing them in the game. So there's lots of different things that people are exploring these days. But you got to start.
Yeah.
You got to
Okay,
try.
so I've learned something new. And I think, a lot of parents have challenges around their kids wanting to be gamers.
Sure.
But now I kind of understand why, because there's obviously money that can be It's not I'm just sitting there and playing games,
No.
I think
having fun, wasting my life away. There's an opportunity for you to earn an income. And I think once parents are educated around
Yeah.
how that works,
You also then don't let them just play.
yes.
You make them code. You know? I think I love the new
yeah,
world.
those
I love
skins
it.
that low, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really real. But it's like with streaming now,
Yes.
where the average kid is starting to say they want to become a YouTuber or a streamer, and because you can make money. I've seen it personally, where like the couple hours that I've been on TikTok live, and then I'm earning like money, and I'm just like, whoa, this is weird. Like people are paying for me to just ramble on, but then the issue with that is it makes people think it's easy.
Yes.
But then when you look at a streamer's hours and the amount of time they're on, also
Yeah.
a lot of any internet person will tell you building that audience took so long because they were just literally talking to one or two people for years and years and years. They started when they were 16, so it
Hi,
looks
Mike.
Hi,
joke.
It started when they were 16 or 15, so it
Yeah.
looks like when they were they
Yeah.
blew up.
Yeah.
But
So you see, going back to your
There we
art,
go.
and I mean, I think this is a problem for me as well, because when I charge a certain amount for doing a talk, so if I have a specific rate for a 1 hour talk, people are like, "Oh, you're quite expensive," but they don't look at what they're actually getting for that hour. First of all, it's an hour of my time getting to your venue. It's an hour of the talk. It's an hour getting back. It's being present. It's being able to answer those questions. It's being able to relay the message in a creative way. It's all the knowledge and the skills and the tools that I've acquired over the years, 20, 30 years,
That's it.
that is going into that 1 hour talk. So you can hire somebody else that's cheaper, but are you going to get the same message and the same effect? And if I look at your art as an example, you didn't just draw this art up in 5 minutes. It's a vision that you had. It's a skill. It's a talent. It's your materials that you've used to actually create that art. It's, there's a whole lot of stuff that just went into it to produce something like that. So that is what you're charging for. It's not just the artwork. It's the passion and the resources that you've used. So, maybe go back and sit down and think like, well, how long did it actually take me to put this together? Maybe it took 5 minutes, that's fine. Or maybe it took a couple of hours.
But
you
even
know?
going back to your art classes that you took after school
Yes.
as a kid,
Yeah.
that's part of the
Yeah.
investment
Yeah.
to where you are now. So I don't know. Am I just motivating you? Go, Chavani, go. But I think it's a very important thing because I do think we undermine ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
And it comes through in our relationship to invoicing, to
Mhm.
accepting just any job,
Yeah.
any circumstance,
Yeah.
and doing that for ourselves. And I also know that we're in this economy where it might be a little bit more challenging to take a chance.
Mm.
But I wonder what your mindset, advice, or shift would be about that.
Mm.
Because I often say to myself, yes, these things are happening, but they will never happen to me.
Yeah.
And I just delulu myself out of everything, right? But, you know, we've got to also have that duality in our conversation.
And then that's something that I struggle with as well, you know, in terms of, okay, I'm charging a certain price, but the market can't pay me.
Mm-hmm.
So do I lower my price
Mm.
and increase the volume of work that I'm doing in order to just be able to survive? And that goes back to like, am I willing to discount my value? So when you look at it and you got to understand or unpack, okay, what are the challenges you're experiencing? Maybe you're not speaking to the right people.
Right.
So maybe that's not your target market.
Okay.
And so there's a whole lot of other things that,
Mm.
you know, from a business point of view that you got to now go and sit and think about. Well, who are my clients? If these people are not my clients because they can't afford my services, because they don't see my value, and if I'm willing to discount my value, what am I also putting out into the universe? That I'm
Yes.
willing to negotiate and reduce my value. That means also that I'm going to be working more than what I initially intended to.
Yeah.
So if I want to only do one talk a day and charge a certain amount for that, I know that I've got to find at least 5 talks for the month or for the week
Yeah.
to be able to earn a certain amount of income. So then it goes back to the drawing board and I have to say, okay, fine, where am I going to find these clients?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to get to those clients who are willing to pay me for my services? And if I'm not willing to do that level of work, then I need to say, okay, fine, well, then I need to reduce my pricing. Then I'm going to have to do 3 talks a day instead of 1.
Insane.
I think that's very important to look at like that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a perception that the younger generation wants things to happen immediately.
Yeah.
But there is a build-up. You do have to earn your 10,000 hours. And I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, Jean.
Because why should I pay you for a service that I can get somewhere else? What skills and values are you bringing to the table? And I think if you can sell that to me as a client, then yes, fine. If you sold it properly, and again, sometimes I struggle with that because
Yes.
it's trial and error. You know, it's you go walk into one meeting, you screw it up, you know, but you learn from that and you figure out, okay, so I went wrong here. How do I improve on that in my next meeting? But I think that comes again with skill and learning and growth. And again, that's the challenge around maybe younger people because they have a vision of what they want to achieve, but they haven't really earned the ability to be able to sell it in that way.
That the culture of failing hasn't really been embraced, really, because
I love that.
you know we're on social media, so we're gonna see your highlights only. So we don't see that you went to however many art galleries, you got rejected by 7, and only the 8th one came to you, because we're thinking everyone just looks at you like a prodigy genius. There's no time for mistakes. There's no time for messing up, and the idea of even pitching yourself where you have to go out and say, hey,
oh, artists,
I am worthy.
We don't like this.
And it's just like, as soon as you find yourself like, irony, I'm in a suit, but talking to the suits, just being like, I am enough.
Which is why I didn't wear a suit.
It eats you up a little.
It really does. But I like that you always talk about the business aspect of it, Jean, because you can have all these skills, and art is what we're talking about. But I mean, you're a speaker. You can have a skill of architecture. Whatever your skill is your skill. But you've almost got to learn or even have people in place who will support you with the supporting skills.
Yeah.
Did we talk about Jennifer Lopez on this show before?
I think so once perhaps.
This is my theory
Yeah, she's
in
my
life.
idol.
Really? We are so the same. Okay, so people say that she can't sing. And so why the heck is she a singer? You know, and there's like a lot of this stuff around Jennifer Lopez being whack in the music. But Jennifer Lopez works harder than anyone I've ever seen.
100%.
My special story about her is that when she says she gives herself a little treat, it's a slice of bread with butter on it. That's her treat.
I'm treating myself every day.
You know what I'm saying? So she takes her business so seriously that her body is a part of her business. I don't know anyone who's put a support system surrounded by managers and marketers. And, you know, even if sometimes like this last project, she overrode all of them, but it's because she was putting her own money in it so she can make the mistake. And so it doesn't matter your talent or skill in a lot of ways. If you're not also going to be able to support yourself in this other way, which is part of what you teach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I think with you mentioned something about failing, and I think failing is a necessary step to learning and growing. And I think we need to relook how we view failing. You know, my daughter failed a maths test once, and I didn't make an issue of it. I said, so what? I said, now you know where you went wrong.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do those same mistakes the next time. So it is an important part of learning and growing and evolving. And I think a lot of us are, especially younger people, are scared of failing. I mean, I'm also scared of failing, right? I mean, those are natural fears for us to have, but are we going to allow those fears to stop us from achieving the things that we want to achieve? And I think that is the important question. Just start, do it. Yeah, so what if you fail? You only fail if you don't get up and pick yourself up again.
Yes.
So learn from those failures, figure out what can I do differently, or what do I need to do better? Where do I need to improve on in order to move forward?
I always end up our conversations like this. If someone's watching and this is the first day they've had any sort of, you know, it's the scales are falling off their eyes about money and money messages, what would the one thing we could implement in our lives today be?
I think having a plan is extremely important. And again, you know, especially for the younger people, I think there's this you only live once. And I find that with a lot of younger people, that's the attitude. We want to just live for the moment. We want to spend all our money and do whatever it is we can do today, because tomorrow's not promised. And yes, tomorrow's not promised. But I think having a plan in place or a vision is extremely important, because, you know, as adults, we live paycheck to paycheck. We've made so many mistakes around money. We've had so many excuses, like we didn't know any better. Yes, we didn't know any better. But I think today, younger people or the younger generation have a wealth of tools available to them for free. There is no excuse. Have a vision in place for what it is that you want to achieve for your future. What do you see that like? You know, I've had workshops previously where younger people have said to me, well, I don't know what that vision looks like. Can you give me some ideas?
Wow.
And I was a little bit taken aback, because I'm not here to tell you what your vision should be.
Yeah.
Go and have a look at, you watching movies, you watching celebrities. What is it about their lives that you want for yourself? Do you want financial freedom? Do you want security? Do you want, you know, whatever that looks like will be different for each and every one of us. Whatever that is, figure out what it is, what it looks like, what does it mean to you? And then you'll start to put plans in place to actually say, okay, fine, I want financial freedom. I want to retire at 40. Everyone wants to retire at 40. That just past my age.
I'm
like,
done. It's over for us.
60 is closer for me now.
But doesn't it still feel nice to work?
Oh, I love it. You
Yeah.
know, I've had so many people, wealthy people, tell
Sure.
me they can't wait to retire. And I said, but I don't want to retire. I want to carry on doing this for the rest of my life.
I enjoy it.
And I got told, oh, you're one of those. I'm like, what do you mean I'm one of those? I love what I do. It doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
You know, I love talking about money.
I think the
Yes.
scary thing is like when you have to. It's not
Yes.
like because you want to work, but it's
Yeah.
because you have to
Yeah.
work. Where that's why when people talk about like retirement annuities and all of these things, where it's like they, especially for me, it sounds so far
Yeah.
and somewhat unrealistic, purely because of the narrative around, like,
YOLO.
yeah,
Yeah.
YOLO, but
Yeah.
also just like, you go on the internet again, and then you see like World War III is coming just now because you see a Trump and a Ukraine and how it's going to involve the Congo and South Africa and this, and then you keep hearing all of these stories where you're like, how am I gonna actually like be able to benefit in the next 30, 40 years when I don't even see the next 10 years looking
Yeah,
bright
sure.
as in the country? Like
Yeah.
you hear these stories with the VAT increases and stuff, and it's like when you do your own calculations, you're like, by the time I'm 60, the price of bread is going to be so expensive. It's like half of my retirement annuity is
Yeah.
going to just go to like a jar of Nutella.
Okay.
You
So
know?
let's just talk about that for a second, right?
Uh-huh.
So, or a few minutes.
Sure. Sure.
So, I get that with a lot of younger people, they feel that they've got all of these expenses and they need to manage whatever income that they currently have. They're thinking about something or an event that's going to happen in 30 years from now is so far away. Like, I'll worry about that in 10 years down the line or
Yeah.
20 years down the line. And I can assure you that time is going to pass by so quickly that by the time you are 40, you would have realized, oh, Shabbat, I haven't saved towards my retirement at all. So even if it's 500 Rand a month or 200 Rand a month that you can put away in a retirement annuity, I'm not sure, I don't sell products, so I'm not sure what the minimum is at the moment. But I'm sure there are investment vehicles out there with minimum amounts that you would be able to consider. Just start with something. And I think getting into the habit of saving for that long-term goal, you benefit from compound growth. You can increase your premiums on an annual basis so that you keep up with inflation. So whatever you're putting away now can actually purchase that loaf
That's
of
so
bread that's going to
important.
cost 50
Yes.
Rand in
Yes.
10 years from now. So those are things that you can benefit from. And the longer the time that you have, that you're investing for, the more you will have to retire. If you leave it, as a rule of thumb, you should be putting away 15% of whatever it is you're earning in your 20s. If you leave that for 10 years and you only start in your 30s, that amount is now not 15%, it's going to be 20%. So if you get to your 40s or your 50s and you still haven't put away, guess how much you're going to actually need to put away at that point in your life just to be able to retire comfortably. You can't put away half of your salary at that point. It's just just too
Not
much.
practical.
So start small, start now, but just start.
Yeah. And maybe have a pet or something that will inspire you to live longer. Do you know what I mean? Like,
And diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So have a long-term savings for retirement, have short-term savings for shorter-term goals.
emergency funds.
Emergency funds, yeah.
Whatever you can
What are
put.
some like, I guess, short-term investments that people can start looking at?
So when you say short-term, I think the important thing is to understand, do you need access for in 5 months from now, in tomorrow,
I
in
mean,
6 months?
like a year or two from now.
So a year or two from now, the best option is probably a bank savings account.
Thanks. Yeah.
So anything less than 3 to 5 years, you would probably need to look at a bank savings account, maybe a fixed deposit.
Yeah.
If you don't need to access the money immediately, so if you don't need it to be liquid. So if I have an emergency tomorrow, I need to be able to access liquid cash.
Got you.
So a bank savings account for that is ideal. If you are able to put that money away for a year or 2 years or 3 years, maybe a fixed deposit, maybe a notice deposit, because then you can wait a little bit of time before you can access that money. So again, it's all about, diversifying, balancing out. If it's a 5-year goal, so you want to maybe get married in 5 years, not you. Or go on a holiday in 5 years from now. He's only 23.
I know.
But maybe you want to save for an engagement ring in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Or go on a holiday.
Yeah.
Or
Go to Japan.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that you can then start looking at maybe, unit trust investment, where you can put that money away, forget about it, and, you'll you'll only need it in 5 years from now.
Mhm.
So again, it goes back to diversifying and not making sure not all your eggs are in one basket.
Okay.
I love that so
So
much.
different investments for
Yeah.
different goals.
You've got to know who you are, where you want to go, what
Yeah.
you're about. Even if you're not that sure, put something away. Just start,
Yeah.
which I think is
Yeah.
great. But yeah,
Sorry to cut you.
it's fine. Go ahead.
I think the way I've been looking at it is because right now I'm working on like my career. So in terms of being a presenter, in terms of doing comedy and all of that stuff, um, that's where like the money is coming from. But then, as you're saying, I would like my art to be, I guess, somewhat of a passive income later on. So I keep looking at it like to have a good foundation to start a business. I would love to have money growing in the meantime, so that when it's time to access that money, there's something there. So I never really know where to look, because right now, all my money from my freelance work comes, it's like I just want to put it away somewhere. I want to just, and I don't know where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, certain banks allow you to have quite a few different savings accounts, and you can label those accounts for specific goals. So if it's, I want to build my art business, think of names for your art business, name that account. That's what it's for. If you want to go on a holiday to Japan in 5 years, Japan Holiday Fund, name it. And then as you earn money, you can on a monthly basis transfer money into those accounts so that you're saving towards those goals. And it also makes it a little more difficult to take money out of that account.
Yes.
So when you're in a fix or you feel like, I want to splurge on something, I'm going to take it out of my Japan fund, you're going to think twice, because I'm like, okay, so I'm taking away from my holiday here. This is a trade-off that I have to make.
Yeah.
So get clear on what those goals are, and then have relevant accounts for each of those goals, so that this is what I'm saving towards.
I'm just happy we're going to start selling his art. I'm just like, I've been threatening to break into his art room and steal the art to sell, I think that's a very, very beautiful thing, because God gave you that gift. I think it's a
100%.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we're wrapping up. And so your book, and how do we book you? Bookings.com.
So as
money.
as a speaker, you can book me under, or my website is jeanarchary.com.
JEAN.
ARCHARY.com. That's for speaking engagements. And then for financial education and financial wellness, that is moneymessages.co.za.
Fantastic.
Awesome. I'm on all social media platforms. You can connect with me or Money Messages on basically every social media platform there is that I know of, that a 50-year-old would know of.
I know we're wrapping.
Facebook.
Which is, I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Mostly Facebook. No, I'm joking. I'm
TikTok.
joking. Yeah.
I know we're wrapping up. This is unprofessional of me to ask this question at the end. But I don't. You heard our conversation when we were talking about posthumous albums and stuff.
Great question.
Yeah.
Yes.
The idea of, as an artist, how do you, I guess, somewhat curate your work? You curate where things are supposed to go, the finances, after you're dead, like when you've passed.
Yeah. So, and I think having some sort of business entity set up will help you to protect your artwork. So you're not selling it as in your individual capacity, but when you set up a business, you can have that artwork sold within the business or as the business. And so there needs obviously again to be some sort of succession planning,
Trust.
royalties that will need to be placed. Other directors or trustees that you might have, whoever are the beneficiaries that you're leaving that business behind to. Those were things that you will stipulate as part of your memorandum in terms of your business rights. You'll also make sure that, that is catered for in your will. So any royalties that comes out of your artwork being sold will then go back either into the business or can be distributed to your beneficiaries. Okay. You'll be surprised. There are a lot of artists and celebrities that actually don't have these things in place. Okay. As an example, I know Prince died without a will.
Yeah.
Oh,
and, exactly. And you think that someone who is of his stature would have all of these things, in place. didn't. And then that causes a whole lot of challenges and issues for your beneficiaries, especially when you start having children, especially when you have financial dependence, and obviously you're still young. But again, setting up a business entity now will help make sure that you've got all of those kind of things in place. And speaking to a financial planner as well.
And that then links back to how people can do whatever they want with your art posthumously, because you haven't really given them a directive under the business that is your art business. So yeah,
That's scary. That's really, really scary, but also empowering to know that there are things that you can put in place.
yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
This was so good. This was so good.
It is.
Do you know what it feels like when you talk to a physician about things that you can change physically to feel better. It feels like when you talk to a psychologist and you think about that, like money is part of the overall health. And I just think it's so important what you do. Thanks, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming through.
You're welcome.
And so just like that, we end off this powerful edition of A Brother and a Sister podcast, enlightening you, teaching you, and saving you, and teaching you how to save, and saving how you teach yourself how to save.
Congratulations for being on this podcast to the both of you. And
Congratulations
for watching the podcast.
Thank you.
You watching this podcast will definitely make you richer.
We'd also like to thank our Spotify, great daddy in the sky.
Always appreciate you.
Always do you want to shake hands one more time?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Would you also like a handshake?
Do you want a
Of course,
handshake?
100%.
Okay.
If I can get
You guys should also.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.